back at WNST, Tassa, Baltimore, and Baltimore Positive. We are calm, we are local, and if I did not send out all of my Team US jerseys, and I think my Team USA scarf is also in there because of non-participation in the previous World Cup, I would be wearing that instead of my Chicken Palooza shirt right now and my hat. But it's been a long time coming. It's been a long time since we've had Terry Hasseltine on our programming here. He is the executive director of the Maryland Sports Commission. We are, hopefully, I'm crossing my fingers, on the verge of maybe becoming a World Cup host city. And Terry, first things first, welcome back on. It's good to have you aboard. I've been reading and seeing what you and Roy Summerhoff and Boyd Rutherford and Al Hutchinson and the Maryland Stadium Authority, everybody putting this thing together. But, man, it's been a long time since I talked to you, and I think the last time this even came up, I think I was having dinner at Ruth's Chris with Pete Caringi, and we were discussing this maybe a year or two ago before a Chicago concert about how this was still sort of out there. And I guess in the middle of coronavirus, we're all wearing masks, we're all washing our hands, and we're not thinking about this stuff, but I'm certainly thinking about this. It is great to have you aboard. I know you have rolled your sleeves up and done a lot of work on this, so I want to welcome you in to tell me all the good stuff that's going to bring the World Cup to Baltimore.
Well, thanks, Nestor, for having me on, and I appreciate the opportunity. Yeah, a lot of people and a lot of energy has gone into this effort over, probably the last decade. As you remember, we were in the hunt for 2018 and 2022 when the U.S. was standing alone in the bid process, and we were doing, engagement activities throughout the Baltimore County and the city during that period of time.
And by the way, we would later find out that corruption was rampant throughout FIFA, but that's another story. But I was awake that morning that the bust happened in Switzerland. I figured that was a fascinating morning for everyone who had ever put their work in like you to put an honest effort in for a bid anywhere, right?
Yep. So this has been a labor of love for me and my team for over a decade now. But now with the North American bid, Canada, Mexico, and the United States going in and collaborating on a bid to FIFA, putting the North American continent on the map when it pertains to the bid, was a really solid effort by the United Bid Committee. We are fortunate. We put our name in the hopper to be one of the cities to be under consideration. The process went through, and here we are today. Baltimore is one of the 17 cities in the United States being considered as a venue to host matches in 2026. We are meeting with we met with the delegation for FIFA and the United Soccer Federation back on the 20th. Laid out our plan, laid out our ideas, and talked big picture Baltimore with them. And now it's up to us in the city of Baltimore and the surrounding communities to really engage and come together to ensure that Baltimore makes the short list, of the 10 venues that will be selected in the United States. No matter what, we're getting something associated with the World Cup come 2026. But at the end of the day, it's really about getting matches in M&T Bank Stadium, and that's where all of our energy is focused right now, is to ensure that the roadmap and the plan that we put forward is unifying the city of Baltimore and the surrounding communities to have one voice, the chance for us to change the narrative of Baltimore from our past and show off our past, brilliant history, but at the same time be able to create a narrative uniting and thriving our communities together, under the one umbrella, and using the World Cup as that platform to tell all the awesomeness that is Baltimore.
Well, I'm on the website right now. Terry, it's amazing because, first off, it's BaltimoreMD2026.us. Make sure you get the .us part right. BaltimoreMD2026.us. And, I'm scanning through this and whatever, and I'm East Baltimore, right? So we're hard scrabble. We're the underdog place. You know all of that. You've been here a long time now. And I look down here and I see our world-class event resume. And I look down and I see, wow, there's Justin Timberlake and Beyonce and Jay-Z, and there's the Star Spangled Spectacular, and we've had lacrosse championships, and we've had U2 tour stops, and Light City, and Do Tour, and Army Navy, America's Game, and all that stuff. And I think, Well, I don't know what the other places have up on their resume or, pictures of our harbor and Cal Ripken on the front and all these great universities and all this stuff. But measuring ourselves against these places, when you go in to do this, what are they looking for? Like what and who is making this decision? Is this the North American Soccer Committee? Is this FIFA? Are we pitching this internally, externally? And what needs to be done, and when does this decision making happen? Because we could pull this off. I mean, there's no question we couldn't have 3-4 World Cup games here 6 years from now. That we have the hotels and the harbor and the airports. We have all of that stuff.
Well, it's a little bit of all of that. At the end of the day, it's FIFA who gets to make the ultimate decision. One is their brand, it's their name on the World Cup, so ultimately they get to make the decision. But you hit on a lot of things there, Nestor. It's about our footprints. And what we're doing right now is we're distinguishing Baltimore against the other 17 cities. Our stadium's in an urban environment. It's walkable to numerous communities. Our hotel and our
now they like that,
amenities.
Right? That's a big sell that FedEx Field doesn't have because it's just not. It's not even on the subway. I mean, but literally, walking is a big part of this, right? From a safety perspective, and for a lot of issues, right?
Play,
right?
Yeah, you have to have all that stuff in place. And when you look at Baltimore and you look at its walkability from the Inner Harbor, where we're proposing fan fests wrapping around the entire Inner Harbor from Harbor Point all the way over, to Rashfield, and engaging an activation community in and around that area. Talking about getting into all the hamlets in and around the city. This is an event that is going to touch every inch of the city. We are looking at a portfolio that is much bigger than the Inner Harbor. One of the big things that we always hear, and I've heard it for the last 10 years, is whenever something big comes to town, it only touches certain aspects of the city. Well, we're going to change that narrative because the World Cup can touch every single community across the city of Baltimore, whether it's a legacy piece and leaving a small pitch in a community to engaging the cultural, connectivity of a place like Hamden to over, to the east side of the city and engaging activities over there, into the western part, into the southern part. There are so many things that are going on in our great city, and the World Cup provides a platform to unify the city on one message, one brand, one identity, and it allows us to take some of these projects that have been talked about, but because of the umbrella of the World Cup, it allows us to activate on them. And it allows us to become that true international city that we know we are. We know we have the culture. We know we have the people behind it. And we know we have a fervor for soccer in the city of Baltimore. It's just up to us to lock arms and make sure that we hit all the key points when FIFA comes to our city sometime in late 2020, early 21 for their official site visit. We roll out the red carpet and show them why Baltimore is just the kick-ass place that they should host the World Cup in 2026.
So FIFA comes over. What do they bring? A contingent, whatever this is, a dozen, 20 people, whatever the number is. What does the World Cup look like here in 2026? I know when I was Well, first things first, the notion that the harbor and the layout and all that, I remember meeting you almost 15 years ago. I got back from the World Cup in 2006. And, man, since the last time we got together, a lot of stuff happened. In 06, I stayed in Amsterdam for 2 weeks in a flat. And the U.S. was involved, and it was in Germany. And we saw the first U.S. game in Gelsenkirchen, and they lost to the Czech Republic. We went to Dortmund and saw Sweden play Trinidad. Mm-hmm. We saw the U.S.-Italy game in Kaiserslautern in the southern and the Rhine part of Germany down towards Switzerland. We flew down to Switzerland. We flew out of Amsterdam, and Amsterdam was crazy, right? Because, like, Amsterdam's this international city where we're on a canal, and there were Brazilians on the canal singing Brazilian songs as the games were going on. You know, in the Heineken Square where the beer's being served, you could see the Dutch fans in orange over here and the Argentinian fans in the baby blue, like I'm wearing on my Chicken Palooza shirt. So that was 06, but we flew down to Zurich, Switzerland. And if anybody Googles what happened in Berlin in 06, where there were literally 1 million people on a hillside watching the games on barges, on televisions on the river there, I landed in Zurich and went into downtown Zurich, Switzerland, and there was an entire 5-block city area that, like Rashfield kind of area, that was tented off for televisions, and everyone was there. And Switzerland, because of the banking communities, obviously a very international city, there were people, excuse me, represented from all over the world that coming in for the games, and there were thousands of people in the streets all over Europe, all over the world. And I remember coming back and meeting with you and meeting with the city. I think Sheila was running the city at the time, and meeting with Ed Hale, who loves soccer, and saying, man, the harbor could be this incredible place. Like Baltimore could be Soccer Town, USA, if we did this for the 2010 Cup or the 14 Cup or the 18 Cup. And maybe we could get the World Cup in America in 22 or 26, because it's going to be on turn to do that, because it was here back in 94. And so all of this dreaming the dream and all the footwork that you put in off of me landing 14 years ago and seeing such an event and always dreaming that it could be here. Give me the lowdown for what happens between now and when FIFA gets here. These people come here, and now what are we pitching? Because Pete Carinci told me, like, one of our real strengths is having UMBCs and having facilities, professional facilities, to house the French World Cup team. If they're going to live someplace, they would want to live at a university. Think about this after COVID. I know it's hard for everybody, but 6 years from now, that they would want to base the German operation somewhere that would be professional, right?
Exactly. That's, you're hitting all the highlights, Nestor. It's, since 2006, where Germany rolled out, the red carpet on the FanFest experience, just envision the Inner Harbor with us putting, tripod-type televisions, large screens in the Inner Harbor, and, being able to watch matches sitting on Fed Hill, sitting on the promenade in the Inner Harbor, going down to Harbor Point and the Sandlot and watching, the large screens from there. Sitting in your office building in downtown Baltimore, being able to look over the Inner Harbor and seeing the matches and the people from all over the globe, impacting our city. You hit, the nail on the head. We have a world-class, airport, the investment that's going on there with the international terminal and the growth of the airports, on light rail, on Mark, getting people downtown. Once people get here, they can walk everywhere they need to go. You don't need a car to experience Baltimore. You just need, one, your imagination, and two, your 2 feet, and you can get almost anywhere you need to go in Baltimore. And now with, the future, renovations of Penn Station and people coming up and down the I-95 corridor and the Amtrak, corridor, Baltimore is ripe for this. Baltimore is set up to, welcome the world. So between now and, close to the end of the year or early 21, we have to, get all of our ducks in a row, make sure that our storyline is sharp, make sure that these things that we talked about, big picture vision stuff, we can put the roots to them and ensure that when we talk to FIFA, that we're showing the things that are going to be actualities come 2026. And also during that time, talk about, the strategies about how we plan on going from 2020 during COVID to 2026 when we're back in a world where people can actually experience things live and in person. And then at the same time, you mentioned it's a delegation. It's going to be a delegation, probably about 12 to 14 folks. They're going to come in. We have one day to roll out the red carpet and show them our stadiums, show them our Inner Harbor experience, show them our hamlets, show them, what Baltimore's capabilities are, and really roll it out to them and show us how we differentiate ourselves from our competitor set. There are only 1 or 2 other cities that are in the 17 that could possibly come close to providing a footprint like Baltimore. Everybody else has to put in a major operational logistics plan because their stadiums are sitting out in rural parts of their communities or not directly engaged with this downtown. When you get to Baltimore, you have everything at your fingertips, and we're going to try to push that, and we're going to promote that. And then we have a lot of cranes in the air. You're talking about port coverage, and you're talking about the stadium, the South Stadium project. You're talking about, Harbor Point and its growth and development. You're talking about Penn Station. What's about to evolve over the next 6 years from a development of, Middle River and those areas. That encompasses our entire portfolio of really awesome activity that shows that we are a city on the go. We're a city on growth, and we're a city that is united. to make things happen for the greater good of our citizens and our residents. And the World Cup gives us that platform, and we have to maximize and take this opportunity, to turn FIFA on their head as they come into Baltimore and just say, wow, how have we been missing this for so long?
He is Terry Hasseltine. He is from the Maryland Sports folks, but you may know him as the executive director of Maryland Sports Commission. You can find them at marylandsports.com. And tell me what Maryland Sports does in the Maryland Sports Commission in regard to the entire state, because you do a whole lot more than just chase the World Cup around every 15 years, right?
Oh, yeah. No, we have a Team Maryland initiative, which is a partnership, a collaboration of tourism leaders across the state who have identified sport tourism as a significant driving force to their economy. We work in everything from youth and amateur events, from soccer to lacrosse to basketball to tiddlywinks to rowing to canoeing. You name a sport, we're involved in it. Yes, we work on some high-profile stuff. We've been involved with the Army, Navy, activities over the years. We've been involved with the NCAA men and women's, championships. We have the World Lacrosse Women's World Championship coming in 2021 to Towson and Goucher. We have the Maryland Cycling Classic coming in September of 2021. The only one-day Pro Series cycling event in the United States coming to the streets of Baltimore County and Baltimore City in 2021. We're obviously focusing on the World Cup right now because its decision day is, soon. But we're working with all of these, organizations across the state and also across the country and internationally to ensure that Maryland is the sport tourism destination of choice for event owners and event rights holders across the globe.
You can find all of the World Cup information and the potential of a Baltimore World Cup in 2026 at BaltimoreMD2026.us. I tell some stories. I'll just tell one fun one because I don't get a chance to tell this one too much. Back in 1994, if you remember, the Orioles were a big deal around here. The Ravens did not exist. Camden Yards was new. And Mike Messina and I were buddies and contemporaries. And I was 3 years into my radio career. And we would generally go out and drink after baseball games on nights not before the night he pitched. So he pitched on Thursday. We did not go out on Wednesday. But any other day, he was a pitcher. He pitched every 4 days, right? So we would go out to Balls or to Hooters, downtown establishments, Baja Beach Club back in the day. But Hooters was our favorite place, and they were a sponsor of mine, Terry. So we would broadcast off the deck at Hooters, which they just moved their location, but up on the upper deck. Beautiful, bars were always packed. There were always, 44,000 people downtown for Orioles games back in the day. The Hooters was the number one Hooters in the world for billing. So at 11:30 at night after an Oriole, they played the Twins in the middle of the night in, it was July of 1994. This is before the baseball strike. Messina and I are up having a beer at Hooters late at night. There's only a dozen people around. It's late at night. It's a weeknight, and there's nobody around. And we hear this noise emanating from the harbor. We're not really sure what the hell it is, and we look down, and we're out on the deck. It was a beautiful summer night. It was July. And we hear all this noise, and we hear a mob of people coming across the harbor. And we look, and we see some blue, and we see some white. And about 75 people come up, and they're chanting, and they're wearing, dreadlock stuff. They were the Norwegian fan group they were playing in the World Cup the next day at RFK, and they had decided to make Baltimore their home, and they were partying in the streets of Baltimore the night before. I didn't really know much about the World Cup then. It was like I wasn't jonesing for a ticket. And it was 1994. I'm 25. I was young and stupid. Didn't appreciate the World Cup and all that. But we wound up sitting on the veranda and drinking with these Norwegian fans till 2 a.m. They had their shirts off. They were all painted up blue and white. And they were having the time of their lives. And I'll never forget that because that was sort of my entree to the World Cup, Terry. You know what I mean? That was as close as it got to me. I knew some people that went down to the matches, and I could probably Google up 1994 Washington, D.C., and I think Saudi Arabia played a game down there. I'm not even sure, but there were a couple of games at RFK. Boy, the stadiums have come a long way since then, huh?
Oh, they've come a long way, and, in all fairness, that's what really differentiates the United States in our bid is the fact that we have all this infrastructure in place. Now, do we have to tweak some things here and there? Yeah, because it's, built and designed for American football. But when it's all said and done, that's what FIFA really, enjoys about the United States. That the airport system, the rail system, our stadiums, state of the art. I mean, you come in the electronics, the digital video boards, that 4K high def, video and display boards in M&T, and the investment that the Ravens and the state have made in M&T Bank over the last several years, and those type of things. That's what really translates to FIFA, is that we're not obviously a country that has to build 10 new stadiums. We don't have to do all that stuff. We might have to tweak and alter, and we'll see what that all plays out here in the future. But it's simple modifications versus having to reconstruct a bunch of buildings that, when all said and done, might never get used again.
By the way, it was June 19th, 1994, that Norway beat Mexico 1-0 on the pitch at RFK Stadium, and then went 0-0 with Ireland at Giant Stadium in East Rutherford on the 28th. So these Norwegian cats kind of hung out, like literally in Baltimore, and I guess this was a great place for them to get up to the Giant Stadium, right, and down to RFK to see their team play, right? I mean, literally, and that I've been that guy. I based in Amsterdam, literally, and went into Gelsenkirchen and went into Kaiserslautern to see my U.S. team play, 12 years later. So that's kind of how this works. So Baltimore might not even lose out if we lose out. And, okay, so we lose out. So we don't get it, Atlanta, whatever. What then happens for Baltimore in regard to, other than maybe selling some hotel rooms and maybe painting the harbor, a soccer ball and putting a bar? I don't know. I mean, what's plan B if we don't get a game? And we wouldn't get one game, right? We get a couple if we get any, right?
Yeah, we're part of the whole pool play.
And there's a lot more games, right? Literally.
Yeah, it's a lot more games,
Okay.
A lot more countries being exposed to our destination. If we, for some reason, don't get matches, there are other events and activities that are associated with the World Cup. Still at the end of the day, we're going to do some type of fan fest, whether we get it or not. We're going to be a base camp or a training site for one or two, if not maybe more, teams, calling Baltimore home for the 30-plus days of the World Cup. They're going to train here. They're going to come and go from here between every match. There's going to be a chance for us to really engage and activate. And then there's also the FIFA Congress that's a part of this as well. So in 25, if everything's well, we could be hosting that event. And all these things add up. I mean, at the end of the day, the legacy of the World Cup, goal is to get matches. But if we don't get matches, the legacy is about the bid process, some of the things that we're going to be able to anchor in the ground during this period of time, and then what we leave behind post-2026. I mean, trying to leave Baltimore in a better place, trying to make sure the next generation has access and, opportunities to things that they might not currently have access to, and making sure that we're using the World Cup as a footprint of legacy, a footprint of opportunity, and a football of people to be engaged and be associated with something that transcends bigger than the game of soccer.
Terry, always a pleasure to have you on, man. We'll send everybody out. I can only imagine how excited I would be, right? Like I would be the one popping the expensive champagne if we were to pull this thing off here. Please keep me informed. As you know, I'm passionate about this and want this to happen badly. More than that, the automatic bid means we actually get in the tournament. That's my cheap shot at the U.S. team. As a country, we've come a long way, and I know the excitement that we had back in 2002 in getting to the 8, and I was throwing these huge parties in the middle of the night up and down Harford Road. A lot of people in the soccer community still remember those parties against Poland and Germany. Crazy that it's been 18 years, Terry. When did you arrive here? How long? You've been here 15 years, right?
No, it's really funny, Nestor. You were actually talking to me on my anniversary, my 12th year anniversary.
Today? Really?
Today.
All right.
Yes.
Well, a dozen years. All right. Well, good.
Yep.
Well,
Today was the first day I walked into an office in Baltimore when, at that time, was over at Redwood Street. The Department of Commerce now was over in Redwood Street. So I entered the office for the first time 12 years ago today.
And, if someone would have told you then that you would be on the phone with me 12 years later and we would seriously have a bid, seriously have a page, seriously be a finalist for a serious real World Cup in Baltimore, I would have shaken your hand and bought you a beer for sure. You know what I mean? Like that, well done. I mean, literally, well done. I mean, there are a lot of places that aren't in on this, right? Like, as much as we could talk about the competitors, and I could sit here and tell you why Atlanta and Boston, Dallas, L.A., Miami, right? New York, San Francisco, there's going to be international. Toronto's going to be involved, Vancouver, right? Mexico City, they'll all be involved in this. Monterey probably amongst others. But we're in this along with Cincinnati, Denver, Houston, Kansas City, Nashville, Orlando, Philadelphia, Seattle, and Washington, D.C. Why would we get it and not D.C., Terry?
Well, I can tell you, 3 or 4 possible reasons. One, FedEx Field is a dating stadium, and right now with the conversation about the football team talking about a relocation, that is going to transpire probably during this period of time. So, where's the potential venue, and what's the investment going to be in a venue that might be looking to move to another location? 2, the access. You hit it earlier, I've hit it earlier. When you land, at BWI, or you land at one of the other international airports within our portfolio, you have to work to get to that venue. When you land at BWI, your work is get on the light rail, get on Mark, you dropped off right at the stadium or right in the downtown environment of Baltimore. So our footprint, I think, is the key differentiator between us and some of the other cities that are in the queue. And I also think the investment in our stadium that has been made over the last 3 years with our partners in the Baltimore Ravens, tells a significant story. But it's really our footprint, our ease of access, up and down the I-95 corridor. You sit sandwiched right there. You're off of 95. You're a nanosecond away from being at the stadium. When you come on light rail, you're being dropped off at the stadium or one stop north of the stadium. So that ease of access, the ease of point, the fact that you can walk right down the pedestrian spine from Oriole Park, and the vista that is back coming on down into the stadium. I mean, you can't sell a better game day experience or a fan experience activation zone like we're going to present, to the FIFA organization. So it's our footprint.
Ole, 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 ole. Good to have you on, Terry. Take care of yourself, all right?
I greatly appreciate it.
Stay in touch now. Terry Hasseltine, the executive director of all things Maryland sports. You can find them at marylandsports.com. And you can find this really nifty page. It's like it exists. BaltimoreMD2026.us. The World Cup is coming to our shores, the United States of America, if we're still all together, if we still have the band together then. And that'll be for the folks in the red hats and the blue hats and the white hats and for everyone around the world. And hopefully we're not in the middle of a pandemic or have anything crazy like that going on. But allow me to dream the dream that when I'm 58 years old, I could stand at the pitch and see Spain over here and the Netherlands over here or Norway over here and Australia over there or South Korea over here and Saudi Arabia over there. I don't want the Russians in. Screw the Russians, though. That's how I feel. Nasty at WNST.net finds me. Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, streaming live everywhere in the world. We are WNST.net, AM 1570. Calm, local, and nothing more Baltimore positive than bringing the World Cup here in 2026.